Der Anfang ist das Ende. Doch ist das Ende nicht auch der Anfang? Unspezifisches Gerede. Sehr vage Behauptungen. Seltsame Satzbausteine. Und all das in einer raunigen deutschen Stimme. Was bedeutet die Zukunft? Was bedeutet die Vergangenheit? Und ist die Vergangenheit nicht die Zukunft? Und hat Nietzsche nicht auch einmal beschissenen Kartoffelsalat zu einer Party gebracht? Was bedeutet dies alles? Glorious Maximus. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Dark, to be more specific. To be more specific, the first and the second season, and what I think about it. What I think that is a bit of a. I mean, it's a bit of a shame that it hasn't gotten more explicit recognition outside of, its fan base, which I mean is probably perpetually growing. But I don't know. It would just feel a lot better to know that, for example, the Stranger Things fan Reddit got like 500,000 users, I believe. Meanwhile, Dark got like a tenth of that, which I get it. It's a show that's a bit more complicated. By that I mean it's just a lot more. Well, complicated is the wrong word to a degree, actually. Dark isn't complicated. Dark is just a bit, what's the word? A bit more sophisticated in its storytelling. There are more characters, there are more storylines to follow, there are more character arcs to understand. There are many gaps spread throughout the entire story, which is being slowly filled and then replaced by newer ones. We got four different time zones. Hold a second. We got the future. We got present day. We got 1986. We got 1950 something, and technically speaking, 1920. Yeah, 1920, 1921, and all of these is basically what you need to. You need to keep track of it all, which technically speaking shouldn't be too big of a problem. I mean, you're getting reminded of all of these things in one episode each time anyway, but as it is, I would understand why certain people are a bit opposed to all this complicated stuff, since it can become rather tedious to keep track of each and every character around. Now let's just get to the basics for those of you who don't know. Dark is one of the first, is it the first? Well, either one of the first or the first German Netflix series to be released, and it follows the adventures of quite a few characters who live in the small town of Winden. In Winden, there is a time portal, sort of. It is situated in a cave system that is part of the nature reserve of Winden. And that has something to do with the nuclear power plant that was erected in the 1950s there. And that's basically the basics of it, because explaining any of that any further would just complicate matters. I mean, I could basically tell you the basic story of what happens in the first episode. A child goes missing, and that said child goes missing in 2019, and he resurfaces in 1986. And I mean, anything beyond that would take quite a while to explain, because they really cram a whole lot of characters and a whole lot of storylines into that. Now, at first you might even get this sense of it being rather similar to Stranger Things. Child goes missing and then resurfaces somewhere where it's, not supposed to be, and something about something. But the major difference between Stranger Things and Dark is obviously that Dark is about time travel. Stranger Things is a love letter to Steven Spielberg movies. So much, so good. And yeah, time travel and multidimensionality, like wormholes and all that. And yes. I know what you're thinking. It's about wormholes, is it? Oh yeah, that means man stelle sich vor. Punkt A, Punkt B. Diese beiden Punkte, sie sind entfernt. Kein Weg außer hier lang kann sie verbinden. Doch was ist? Yeah, mate. I'm from alternate timeline, you know. Got that sweet rifle, I look kinda cool like that. I mean, basically I'm some sort of prophetic thing. Anyway, you know what's important about these kind of shows? Time traveling and dimensional switching, as well as obviously wormholes, need to be explained in some way or another. How do we do that? Exakt. Was ist mit stereotypischen Science-Fiction-Tropes? Punkt A, Punkt B. Ein Wurmloch. I'm sorry. Yeah, they basically do that whole shtick because it has to be in there. I mean, how else would you want to explain to someone how a bloody wormhole works? Gordon Ramsay is going to end the world, and we have to stop him. Oh God, I definitely need to stop him. Even though I'm pretty sure that if I try to do that, I'm going to make things worse. That is another thing. Which Stranger Things. I was about to say Stranger Things. Fuck me. Where Dark really excels. Dark excels at giving you a story where you have hope, and then crushes that hope over and over and over again. It crushes it so hard. You believe this character could possibly live. Wait, hold a second. Shit. We just led this character to his doom. Oh, that's too bad. It's almost like that had to happen. Oh yeah, it had to happen. Well, that kinda sucks. Now what do I do? Well, I guess I could try to prevent... Oh shit, that thing has also been caused by unavoidable circumstances. Ooh, that sucks. Well, now everybody's miserable. Now everybody's completely miserable. There's nothing that we can do to stop any of that. Anything negative in this universe is bound to happen. It just is. And you can't stop it. That's the basic philosophy, and yes, it comes across as very nihilistic to a degree. It's basically like, oh, I mean, you are the chosen one. Actually, you're not. It's more like the universe is playing ping pong with your balls, and just keeping you in a constant state of pain and loss as long as it can. As long as it wants to, because it just can do that, and it will do that. Oh God. So, Dark is a brilliant show when it comes to being disappointed about the fact that things don't turn out for the better. It's never gonna end the way that you wanted it to. Dark Season 1 served more as an establishing season. We get to know all the characters, we get to know quite a few mysteries, a few characters who are mysteries in and of themselves, and in Season 2 we get elaboration on each and every one of these. Not necessarily explanations for each and every one of these, because new questions turn up the moment the old ones are answered, and that's how this show just works brilliantly. It's sort of like imagine you got Steins Gate. If you know the anime Steins Gate, there's also about time travel and cause and effect and how that gets kind of thrown out the window once you bring time travel into the mix. A bit of Doctor Who, a bit of Back to the Future, and a bit of Donnie Darko while you're at it, which I'm pretty sure they made a few references to in the show. And yeah, and you got one hell of a, granted, hard to relay mess. It's hard to really review this show. Going over each and everybody's time travel plot would be a tremendous enterprise to do, and I'm not in the mood for standing here like 15 minutes straight and just keep them on talking and talking about how this character did that and how that character did this. Actually, after I finished season 1, I made something. It's really cheap and you won't really make anything out of it, but yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting. I wrote it on the back of a IKEA brochure, but like whatever. This is me trying to make sense of the time travel plots in Dark. And yes, it ended up being a complete and utter clusterfuck. I mean, what else do you expect? It's not very well formatted. You might be able to read a few names and you might know who they are, but at the same time, it's not gonna do you any good because it's just hard to really put it into a cohesive narrative, so to speak, without seeming a bit crazy. And that's also the thing, like, in season 1, everybody had to get used. Like, a few characters got to time travel themselves, and everybody had to try and wrap their head around the idea that there's a possibility of time travel. Everyone who wasn't already involved in the time travel itself. In season 2, quite a few more characters get introduced to the concept of time travel, and once enough evidence has surfaced, they, in fact, sort of start to really believe in it, and they become more active in the whole time travel idea as it is. Because in the first season, and that is also another interesting thing, there were like I believe 4 characters who regularly time traveled, who did that whole thing, and 2 to 3 characters who got introduced to time travel. In the second season, quite a few new characters joined. Quite a few characters, they're not new characters, but they're new to time travel, joined the time travel train. So it makes it a lot harder to see who is when and why, and so on and so forth. But in essence, whom do I recommend Dark as a TV series or as a Netflix series to? Everybody who enjoys a bit of a good riddle every now and then. The idea of Dark is not to have a adventure of the 1980s nostalgia kind, like, you know, Stranger Things. The idea of Dark is to have an enigma in front of you. To have a bloody Rubik's Cube made out of a billion single a cube made out of a billion squares, and you gotta solve that thing. And then you realize it's not just this bunch of squares on a Rubik's Cube. The cube is also 4-dimensional, and your past self has started to rotate things, and you can only go so far before you realize that your future self is also gonna have to work with what you leave behind, even though it doesn't make a difference, because you are just the victim of the entire timeline. There is nothing you can do to really solve the bloody Rubik's Cube. Everything is gonna end the way that you don't want it to end, because your past self has made the same mistakes that you could have sworn were easy to avoid, but only in hindsight. And your past self actually replaced your future self, which is why your future self is now in the past and your past self is now in the future. And you're actually in an alternate timeline, which I'm pretty sure was the premise of the last episode of Dark, the second season, that next season we're going to deal with alternate timelines. Also, your mum is like a total twat. Yeah, so much for that then, I guess. Oh boy. That's a lot of stuff to take in, isn't it? But yeah, everything considered, I do have to admit, Dark is a very intricate series. It's to a degree complicated. At first, like at the beginning of this video, I stated that Dark isn't that complicated. It's just interwoven, so to speak. But no, the Dark is definitely complicated. It's hard to explain everything without giving away too many spoilers, which I also realized was a problem when I visited the Dark Reddit, the Dark subreddit, because quite a few people just kept on spouting spoilers, but just trying to have a general conversation about the second season. I hadn't watched the last episode yet, so it was all a bit mixed. I could have sworn it would have, like, it's almost impossible to not spoil things if you're talking about the show, because unlike Stranger Things, well, it's a basic story. Stranger Things is such a straightforward story. There's nothing complicated about it. There's nothing too intricate about it. It is the way that a Steven Spielberg movie is supposed to work. Everybody can enjoy it. Everybody can have a bit of fun and got a bit of humour here and there. And obviously, it's going to end, relatively speaking, with a positive ending, as opposed to Dark, where each and every episode's ending just seemed to bury any notion of hope even deeper into the antimatter pit of hungry, time-travelling sharks with laser scopes on their heads, and many more dangerous things. Is brilliant, and yeah, quite challenging, which is admirable in my opinion. Admirable that this has been released as a series on Netflix. But at the same time, something that you might not like if you are not the kind of person who, what's it called, binge watches. If you binge watch, it might not be your show. If you like binge watching in the background, because like that's what I did, for example, with Archer. Archer was the kind of show that I played video games while listening basically to Archer. Not too good of an idea if you want to follow everything that happens in Dark, because there are quite a few visual cues as well, and blink and then you miss it, you know, that kind of stuff. Oh, I totally forgot about that. The thing why I even started this video in German, because it is a German show. So for those of you who want to watch it, who are not from Germany, I would say it's up to you how you want to watch it. But, and that's important, you can watch the dub. I'm not sure if it's any bad. All the characters got like stereotypically American accents and that. That's all that I could take from it. I'm not sure about the acting. It seemed fine to me, though obviously the dub is a second-hand experience to a degree. The sub, from what I can tell, did a nice enough job to provide you with an accurate translation, which is something that you ought to want to have while watching such a show. As such, that's basically all I have to say, and yeah. No, that's basically it. See you around. Und so wird das Ende wieder der Anfang und der Anfang wieder das Ende und ich klinge irgendwie ein bisschen wie Darth Vader, verdammt nochmal.